And welcome back. The boys are back, and this is the men's recap for the World Games. Fellas, we had some fireworks, we had some big performances. Let's recap the men's just like we did the women's, starting with the lightest lifters. And in the lightweight division, Joe Jordan from USVI with 720, big, robust 720. Only Shell has done more at this world's level, unless I'm mistaken. Kyoto, in his final appearance as a 66, doing 717 and a half. And Canada's Clifton Foe with 700.5, also a 66. My goodness. I remember when 700 made mean you were podiuming at Worlds, possibly winning Worlds. Clifton doing Canada proud, and Jonathan Garcia, a bit of a surprise here, representing US, 687.5. He had posted on Instagram, wasn't the day he wanted. We'll touch base on that. Santos Jimenez from Mexico, 680. Ivan Campano weighing in at 59.87. Now, this is a little over the 59 kilo class, but not a heck of a lot. Not a full kilo over. It's still a 59, just a little bit of change on there. 642.5. Ivan starting to turn into a star here with some major lifts. Antoine Garcia, also a 59, opting to actually weigh in under 59. 625, massive performance for Antoine Garcia. And Antoine can actually raise his hand and say, excuse me, I was the strongest 59 on the day. And Kasim Sand, representing Thailand, 59.94. So still a little bit over the 59 kilo class at 617.5. Now we have some questions here. We have quite a bit to discuss. First off, Kyoto, final performance as a 6'6", leaving. Joseph Jordan, phenomenal showing on that young man, going 8 for 9, just missing his last deadlift, but winning the lightweight division. Jonathan Garcia not having the day he wanted. What does this mean for Ivan Campano with 642 and a half? What does this mean for Kasim Sand? Second go, he was allotted almost a full kilo more, and that means a lot. You know, Penn has said before, the last kilo is the toughest kilo to cut. He did not cut the last kilo, still did not have the performance he wanted. And of course, Antoine Garcia, 625, he actually was at 59. The 59s are rising. I don't know. There's too much to unpack here. Rory, do you want to go first and help me start unpacking this? Where do you want to dig in, sir? Dig in with both hands, please.
Right, I'm going to jump around a little bit, I think. So, yeah, Kasim Stan definitely did not have the day that he was looking for, right? 617.5. Having said that, that is like, I actually don't have his Worlds total open in front of me. It's about 100 kilos more than he did at Worlds. That was only like 3 months ago, right? So, the performance that he had at Worlds and the performance that he had here to this last week, yes, they're going to be impacted by his cut, but I think they're way more significantly impacted by his injury. And I hope that he waits to see what he can do after he recovers, or at the time he decides he can no longer recover at 59 and it's just like too punishing before he decides that it's not the weight class for him, right? We've all had lingering injuries that have impacted our performance for way more than 3 months. Like that's very reasonable. Um, and
I
so
pause you
like,
there.
yes.
Uh, uh, how about this? When you touch up on a topic, I just want to throw it to Matt. Matt, are you also saying stay at
Yeah,
59?
yeah. Well, the only thing I would add is I rode in the elevator with Kasim saying this was the day before that he was lifting, and I just asked him point blank, man. I was like, "What's going on? Like, how are you feeling?" And he said, "I'll be completely honest with you." He goes, "I feel better than Worlds, but I'm not all the way back yet." And
Yeah.
to Rory's point in terms
Well,
of
there
the
it
injury,
is.
and so that's why I think we saw. Look, he beat his world's total by 147 and a half kilos. And so in large part, that was because of the injury, right? So he just told me, he said, I'm on my way back, but I'm not 100%. So again, when he kind of told me that, I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of him.
Yep. So that's like a
Corroborates
kilo and a
your
half on his total a day since Worlds.
when you put it in that perspective, you sold
I
me,
love,
Rory. You should be in sales if you're not already.
I
Okay,
love
sorry,
that
sir. You
metric.
you go ahead and continue, Rory.
Um, Ivan, I mean, 642, great total at 59. Yeah, last kilo is the hardest kilo. 642 gets you sort of like kind of where you need to be if you want to be on the podium at Worlds at 59 in the future, I think. So good total. Obviously not at 59. And so like I can't say he's like the front runner. I mean, would only be the front runner by like a kilo, given the APAC meet from last month. Um, Great performance there.
The only thing I would add to that, just before Rory, because I know you're bouncing around and kind of Ryan, you want the counterpoint. The only thing I would add to that is that last deadlift that he took at 285 was really close. I mean, you should see that the replay of that. So if we add 15 kilos,
15
again,
kilos,
I know,
that's
I
15
know,
kilos.
yeah, that's horseshoes and hand grenades. It's close is only good enough, but that would be 657.5. And so then we're talking, wow, he's only two. And again, he didn't make weight, but then we're talking, okay, now he's in the conversation of really starting to creep up on that, 669.5 or 669 by Fedosienko. But anyway, yeah, good performance by Ivan. But
thank you. That would force Rory to put a little more respect on his name.
Whoa. What the hell? I do
Thank
not
you,
want to
Matt.
get thrown under the bus for that. I said that's a great performance.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I specifically want to call out is that Clifton Foe broke the only world record for the men 318 kilogram deadlift, which is huge, right? Like that is ridiculous. And ticking over 700, which there are plenty of years in the past that a 700 kilo total would have had you on the podium at Worlds.
Did anybody hear what exactly happened with Jonathan Garcia?
I don't know exactly what happened. I think he missed he missed two squats. He opened on 250. He jumped to 265. And I think there were depth calls on both of those. And so yeah, that's what he missed. And then, you can see he went 3 for 3 in the bench and then missed his final deadlift. So again, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to Jonathan, or I should say the lifters in this session, just because I had Jerns in the next. But yeah, just 3 missed lifts. And so total dipping down a little bit. And, but having talked to Jonathan kind of at the closing ceremonies, look, he was still, had a great attitude and so thrilled and so glad that he came and, kind of soaked in the experience.
You had mentioned this in the women's recap show, the experience itself, whether or not you had the day you wanted or whether or not you didn't have the day you wanted, once in a lifetime opportunity, as closest to the Olympics as most of these lifters, if any of them will ever get. So yeah, it's all worth it for sure. Any other notes before we move into the middleweight division, gentlemen?
I was just going to add one thing. So a little bit, like you said, or I'm sorry, Ryan, that this is, Kyoto's last performance at 66, because I think they've been vocal about him moving up to 74. Unfortunate there that he missed that final deadlift. That seems to be his Achilles heel, if there is one, is you just can't seem to connect the dots on the final pull. And just hats off to Joe Jordan. Kind of did everything that he said he was going to do. He was talking about possibly being in that 735, 730 to 740 range, but comes in and hits a 720 total, which I think is, probably the third. Let me see. Yeah, it's tied for the third best total of all time in this weight class. So presumably when he comes to Worlds, he'll be, a podium contender. And it certainly seems like Joe Jordan, under the tutelage of the strength guys and Jason Tremblay and Urban Murr and all that cast of characters, seems like he's right of the ship. Now his arrow is pointing back up in the right direction.
Look, the 66 is his entire power vacuum. Pana's moved up, Kyoto's moved up, Shell's moved up, Castellsan's moved down. I got to sit back and see who the heck is still there. Jackson's still going to be there. Phenomenal lifter coming from US. There'll be people there. There might be some new entrants for sure, but right now, anybody's game. Absolutely anybody's game. And Jordan's in a great spot to maybe take advantage of that situation. We'll have to see how it all plays out. Let's talk about the middleweights. And Jerns Kingamo, this is your man's Matt Gary. Absolutely phenomenal showing, 872.5. Cannot believe the kilos this man has put onto his total. I remember when he was hitting 800 and winning Euros. And, this is not that long ago. Here we are, 72 and a half kilos later. I remember when he won Worlds over Russell, and those fellas were in the 840s. And that was huge for Germans. And he was putting so much progress from 820s to 840s and beating Russ. And it was, oh my gosh, how far can he go? Seemed like a late chapter in his career to be doing those kind of gains. Well, here he is winning the middleweight class at World Games with 872 and a half. Still in the hunt. Phenomenal showing. And Ahoro, obviously quite a bit back from Jones. These gentlemen were going back and forth initially in the rivalry, and it seems Jones has quite the spread. But Enaharo, let's give this young man credit. Again, I'll gladly eat some crow here. Previously, we had said, brought up the stats about his final deadlift and his inability to perform in the deadlifts despite having absolutely monstrous deadlift. And we were begging for him to tighten up on some of that attempt selection, and let's see him go 3 for 3. And Enaharo, maturing as a lifter here, only missing his opening bench press, 3 for 3 in the bench press, 3 for 3 in the deadlifts, going 817.5, securing second spot in the middleweight class. Kjell Bakkelen from Norway, 775, and appears, I'm not sure. He said he's going to be a lot better shape come Sheffield, and it'll be interesting when Penna moves up. How many kilos does Penna put on his total if these guys have a bit of a rivalry here? Now, Kjell, we know, can pull away. He could get up in deep into the 800s where Penna has already risen his hand and said, it's going to take me some time. 800 is obviously could be in Penna's sights, but it's going to take him some time to grow into. But if Kjell sticks around 775 range, like Euros and World Games, whoa, might have some fireworks at the European Championships, World Championships. It's exciting. I love to see some rivalries here. But nevertheless, so back into World Games. Clinton Lee of Singapore, 745 coming in fourth. And then representing Chile, Roberto Anderson with 755. And Matt, I'm going to throw this to you. I know Jones is your guy. You handled him at the World Championships with pride. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so I'm going to start kind of at the bottom of the podium and then work my way up. So hats off to Kjell Bakkelen, just the wily veteran, arguably, the GOAT of powerlifting, given his resume in both the classic and equip sides. He had a good performance. I mean, went 9 for 9, but, admittedly at the press conference after, Kjell said he struggled with this prep and was not in top form. But again, going 9 for 9, lifting well, executing well, representing yourself well on such a huge stage, served him well. And so he took that bronze medal position. And of course, Enaharo had a good day at 83. It was nice to see him make 3 deadlifts. And, obviously being the strongest deadlifter of the group, his world record is still sitting at 380. He opened on 355, he went to 375 and he crushed it. Clearly had more in the tank. And, but his coaches wisely surveyed the situation, did the math, ran the numbers, and only took him up 2.5, much to Enaharo's chagrin. He was visibly upset and really disappointed in the fact that they didn't kind of let the rope out for him and allow him to lift more. But I can only speak from a coach's perspective. In my mind's eye, that was the right call. You could not catch Jones. I can't remember what the math was. I think he probably needed like a 415 or a 420 pull, and we didn't want to see that movie again. So, him loading up to go for the win. So his coaches wisely just went up the absolute minimum that he needed to eclipse Kjell. And he smoked it. The 377 looked just as easy as the 375 because you're essentially taking the same attempt again. But credit to him for lifting well, representing himself well. And then he also was vocal at the press conference. Enaharo is moving up to 93. So this is the last that we've seen of him. Yep, he's moving up. The last we've seen of him at 83. And so just in the short term, as he grows and matures into that class, presumably there is some low-hanging fruit there because his 83 kilo deadlift world record at 380 is higher than the 93 kilo deadlift record held by Chance Mitchell, which is at 373.5. So it's, probably just a matter of
I just got to clear this up. Athlete of the day, reminder, this is of the multi-sport event of all flipping sports, period.
Yeah, of all the sports. So that's why this is such a huge deal, because you've got approximately 4,000 athletes competing, and I'm not sure how many sports, but to your point, Ryan, the plethora of sports. And so Jurgens was recognized as the athlete of the day. They picked 2, I think it was on the day that, or actually no, he was awarded athlete of the day on day 9 or whatever the day was. And so there was a special ceremony at the World Games Plaza. So we had to travel all the way. Again, like I said, it was an hour away. He was recognized on stage. There were TV cameras, local TV cameras, crews there. Locals came to this award ceremony. Jurgens was awarded a watch. They gave him a beautiful watch, like a luxury watch. And he was interviewed after, as I said, by local TV cameras and crews. He was going to be tentatively the next day. My understanding is he was going to be on their version of in America, we have a show called The Daily Show. Basically, he was going to be on their version of The Daily Show the next day, but for some reason that fell through. But this was a really big deal. The fact that classic powerlifting, an athlete from our sport, was recognized amongst these other 4,000 athletes, and our sport was given its proper due and proper shine. So I think, hopefully, you know what I mean? Fingers crossed and prayers up that bodes well for us, because there's no guarantee that classic powerlifting will be invited back to the 2029 World Games in Germany. But that is to say, because one of our own, and as I said, it would have been just as cool if Carlina had won it or if Tiff had won it or what have you. But the fact, of course, that it was GB's own, GB's finest was Jurns Kingamu, that made it even cooler. But it's just awesome that we were recognized. And so I've got to think that when, the International World Games Association sits down after the event, after the dust settled, and their board members are talking and so on and so forth, and they got to look at the metrics. Maybe they look at live stream views. Maybe they look at ticket sales for each event. Maybe they look at these different things. To your point, Ryan, when you comb through the social media, and the social media stars in powerlifting have such tremendous followings, this has got to bode well for classic powerlifting. So this was a huge win for Jurns personally. It was a huge win for British powerlifting. And I think it was an even bigger win for classic powerlifting as a whole. And so I cannot put enough superlatives on this performance. And I'm just over the moon for him and for our sport because of this performance.
Rory, this is a tough act to follow, but do you have anything to add into this?
Yeah, so I said at the beginning of the women's episode that it's a shame that the media let down the event because we knew none of that. Like, how is it possible that they've got this like amazing award that they give out once a day? So 10 people across the like 4,000 athletes or whatever, and one of them is Jurns Kingamu, and we didn't even know about it. Like, this is the first that I'm hearing about this, and like I watched everything. I watched all of the highlights. I watched all of I watched most of them live. I watched the ones I didn't watch live afterwards. Like how did we not know about this? It's such a shame. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, I put it in my story naturally, and we were celebrating it on Instagram. But to your point, Ryan, or to your point, Rory, yeah, because this was like a day or two later that he was actually given the award. It wasn't until later in the week that we went over there when he was given the award. Yeah, I don't know how you kind of mentioned that, but anyway, I mean, British powerlifting and the IPF and everything on their social medias, they've all celebrated it. The World Games have celebrated on their socials. But I don't know how you kind of pump that into the stream of consciousness. Maybe you announce it on the equip lifting days if, for people who were turning into the equip lifting, is to say, hey, powerlifting got recognized as one of our own, the call on the classic side, got the award. But yeah, just an extraordinary achievement and recognition.
I don't really have anything to add to that except that Jurns deserves this, right? Like he's been my guy since I don't know when it was, Ryan, but if you remember years ago, we were talking about a preview for Worlds, and we were like, look, if Jurns puts a really, really good day together, he's going to total 800. That was only like 3 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, and now he's totaling 872.5, which is phenomenal.
And the only thing that I'll add to this, Ryan, just to put a little bit more shine on it, is the fact that he hit 872.5, which is a tremendous, 15 kilo bump on his PB total, right? In a 5-lifter flight. So you put him in some similar conditions, a home game experience in Great Britain or what have you. I mean, it just not 950, but look, he's probably in the mid 880s, realistically, or 880 plus, right? With more adequate time to, it's insane. So I know that he's been vocal about this. He's going to do silent worker just for fun, but then it sets the table for him at Sheffield, where, that meat is manicured and groomed for high level performance. They do everything that they can to extract the biggest performance, and it's going to be a 12 lifter flight. And so if he stays healthy and has the kind of prep that I know that he can have, yeah, I mean, it'd be exciting to see him tack on to the 872.5. So
I'm going to be at silent worker. I'm actually pretty hyped.
Yeah.
It's going to be wild. In Penna's first 74 kilo, return to, I know way back in the days, 74 of Penna, returning to 74s, it's silent work is actually going to be freaking fun. Anyways, I don't want to divert from World Games here. Well said, by the way, walking us through there. And yeah, hats off to Jurns. That's our guy, man. He did his damn thing and did us all proud. And it couldn't have happened to a better guy, a better flag waver, not just for Britain, but for powerlifting, period. That's why I
That's
love
right.
he's got a podcast. He's doing his damn thing. So I'll see you soon, Playboy. Let's move into the heavyweight class. And Anatoly Novopismani, as if he needs more accolades, clinching the World Games title in the heavyweights with 937.5 and an eye-opening body weight of 98.3. Now, I'm thinking he's always a light
Yep.
105, if you're wondering. He's always around 103-ish or in point something. But that's 5 kilos. Did he cut 5 kilos to bump up his GL points? I don't know. Maybe he came in second overall. He won the heavyweight division, maybe. Or is he cutting down to 93? And when you look at his total, 937 and a half, total didn't drop very much, despite being 5 kilos lighter. His PR is what? 940, 940.5. What are we talking about here? So that's 3 kilo difference and 5 kilos off the old body weight, and he's 5.3 kilos off of 93. I don't know. I'm not sure what direction he's going. Literally, while we were talking and I seen that, I messaged him personally and said, "Are you cutting to 93 now?" It's middle of the night in Ukraine, but if he can't sleep and he happens to look at his phone, I'll update you guys.
Right.
Gustav Hedlund with 890 total, dipped a little, misses third squat, misses third deadlift. I'll get you guys impressions there. Emil Norling with 922 and a half, decent showing by Emil, but he misses third squat, opening deadlift. He's done more in the past, but there rounds out your 1, 2, 3 in the heavyweight division. Christian Ayandokun 892.5, Fras of Tunisia 870, and Walter Carizio of Canada 865. Did a huge swing on his last deadlift, loaded a 400.5, missed it, but if he hit it, we'd all would have been talking about it today, huh? So it was worth it. This time I'll throw it to Rory. Rory, what are your thoughts? I know you're a huge Anatoly fan. Anatoly clinching the win, coming in second overall, and your impression on the lower body weight.
Yeah, it is hard to tell at the World Games if people are sort of cutting for good lift points because that's sort of probably a little bit more of a significant advantage than the sort of half a kilo advantage you get for coming in light in an ordinary competition. Um, I will say though, I think particularly with Anthony Norton sort of breaking through recently, the 93s are probably a little bit softer. That's wild to say than the 105s right now. I think it's more likely that he can cut to 93 and maintain sort of a 930, 940 total than it is that he's going to total 980 at 105 anytime soon. Um, so yeah, fantastic performance from Anatoly. He's always been my guy, right? Like huge squat, huge bench. Pleased to see that he held on to his deadlifts today. The obviously DQ'd at Worlds for bombing on deadlifts. He was not able to hang on to the bar. He opened 15 kilos lighter here today, and ended his third attempt where he failed previously. So I think that probably means that he was reading into that a little bit, he's been quite cautious about sort of cementing his total. And yeah, 937.5 kilograms is not a slouchy total. It's a little bit down on what he's done before. I think he's done, yeah, I think you said 940.5. But that is a phenomenal day from him and 119.41 good lift points. So second overall behind Duran's, right? And we were just singing Duran's praises hugely just now. And it's not like he's beating slouches either, right? Like he's just beaten Gustav Hedlund and Emil Norling, who are and the others, but like these are phenomenal lifters. Gustav, at one point we were talking about him as like lifter of the year, right? And it's not head to head on kilograms. They are in different weight classes. Anatoly's quite a bit heavier. But yeah, he beat Gustav, and that has to be a good sign, right?
And also, so first off, I want to throw this to Matt to get Matt's impression of which way direction he thinks Anatoly is going. I agree with you, Rory. if you're looking at Anthony McNaughton, you're tipping your hat and saying, listen, young king, you obviously have a massive spread here. But Anatoly, 930 immediately, even if he loses another 7.5 kilos off his total, immediately a contender in the 93s. And at this body weight, still squatted 900, or sorry, still squatted
Yeah.
800 pounds, by the way.
Right.
I mean, his total is maintaining, and he's still benching. Is he benching 500 still? Let me take a look at here. He's still
Yeah, he
benching
is.
500. Yeah, he's benching over 500. He's squatting 8, benching 5. Deadlift is never going to be his sharpest weapon, but as long as it's serviceable, he will immediately be, if he could pull it off, he will immediately be a threat in 93 to win it, let alone podium. Um, and what a stacked 93 kilo class when you have a legend like Anatoly coming in and a guy like Russell Orhe, who's an all time legend coming in. Holy smokes, the 93's got a facelift. But Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that it's been, I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I mean, everything that you just said is true. Everything that you just said is true. None of those statements were false. I just don't know if he is, in fact, coming down to 93. Yes, he's closer to 93. He weighed in at 98.3. So he's closer to 93 than he was to 105. And to your point, maybe he wants to clash with the people at 93 versus taking on the likes of McNaughton, and Keenan Lee and all those guys at 105. But yeah, it was nice to see him have a bounce back performance, 9 for 9, executed like a pro. To Rory's point, he finished on the deadlift where he tried to open. I know that Gustav, just having talked to him, didn't quite have the prep that he wanted, still trying to get some things sorted out in terms of training style. And that happens sometimes when you transition to a new coach. So he's been working with Joe Stanek, and he just talking to him on the bus ride over to the closing ceremony. He said that they experimented with squatting and deadlifting together on the same day, and it didn't produce the exact results that he was thinking that it might. And so missed 335. That would have tied his PB, I believe, in the squat. So he missed that on strength. And then, of course, he just loaded up at the end there. That's what he needed. He needed the 362.5 to try to catch Anatoly, but Anatoly had a significant spread there in points. And then, of course, we had Norling coming in third. It was interesting because we were in a position having, I was coaching Christian Iandokin, who intentionally weighed in heavy, made no attempt whatsoever to get down close to 93, was happy to lift, actually weighed in heavier than Anatoly, which was kind of
That's
shocking.
right.
But Christian had a phenomenal day. The way that he hit his third squat, I'm sure I'm going to catch a lot of crap on social media. That everybody's saying that I was holding him back. But we both agreed when he came off the platform, based upon how his second one looked, that we were going to go to 322 and not get out of pocket. But then, of course, he hits the 322 and makes it look like he had 5 more. Christian's only misses. He missed his second bench. That was on a technicality. They weren't happy with his elbows. And then it was a speed bobble on his deadlift where he just, he locked and unlocked. So we just took the 20 kilo jump that we planned on taking anyway, but we were in a position there. So when we took the 360 deadlift with Christian, we were putting Emil in a position that he'd have to come out and make his third deadlift, which of course he did. And so Emil came out, made the 362.5 deadlift and was able to kind of nudge ahead of us for the podium. But that's kind of how, I saw things, and it was just fun to see because you've got a legend in the game in Anatoly, and it's nice to see him come and have a bounce back performance at the World Games and secure the W.
Yeah, I mean, if we're all talking about can Anatoly make 93, well, Christian does, and Christian weighed more than him here.
And I think that's one of the things we see. We haven't mentioned it yet. I think that's one of the things we see, even though, and I say this with undertones of respect, right? And this is all positive, but we see somebody like a Tiffany Chapon who weighed 47.11. And we see, Serenaldi, who's just over, a Bobby Butters, just over, just a little bit, Ivan Campano Diaz, just a little bit over. It's the comfort of having a variable that's off your plate, right? It's a stressor. It's a stressor. It's an anxiety producer. So in some cases, you say, well, this person was just a stitch over. How are they able to total as much as they did? Well, it's just not having that anxiety. It's not having that stress. And then it's also the fact that in large part, because it's based on formula and it's not head-to-head, they're kind of sort of running their own race, right? They're not going kilo for kilo. And so maybe the attempt selection decisions are a little bit different until you get down to the final deadlift where you're looking, oh, okay, where am I sitting on forecasted GL points? Now let me try to position myself to nudge ahead of somebody. But it's those kind of things that set the table for these types of performances. And so it was nice that, yeah, like Christian said, coming off of Worlds, he was just tired and beat up and didn't want to have to make weight. So it's nice to not have to account for that variable and kind of rock up to a competition. And in his case, he rocked up 5 kilos heavier than he normally does, almost 6 kilos heavier, but still had a good day and was able to hit some lifetime PBs.
Let's talk about the super heavyweights. And while we're talking about bodyweight, Timur, 130 again. So I don't think we're going to be seeing Timur cutting below 130 range. I think this is where he's going to nestle and be hanging out. Having said that, Timur winning the super heavyweight class, 990, 40 kilos ahead of Etienne, the 120 kilo world champion with 950, Nicolas Perrault with 930, 934 or 932.5, sorry, coming in fourth place. Taras and Lucas Wiseman of Canada, 927.5. Lucas in the 120s. And Bentz from Hungary, 902.5. And with 660 is Victor Vasquez of Spain. And Matt, what are you thinking about the super heavyweights here? I think Timur, a little bit in no man's land, far too small to campaign at super heavyweight to battle with the super heavyweight men. And if I'm honest, the 120s, he's got 10 kilos of body weight on them. We know Rondell Hunt is far above 1,000 kilos. Right. Bob Matthews, we're anticipating is going to be 1,000 kilos. You got guys like, McNaughton at 105. So that 990, strong, respectable. Yeah. Right. But I think we're entering a bit of a different era for Timur. I think he'll be floating around 130. I don't think we're going to see any movement there. All the talk of 120 potentially for a little ways back. That's 10 kilos. It's not. I don't believe it's going to happen. And I think this is the new future. Any other takeaways from the super heavyweight men's? I know Etienne probably didn't have the day he was hoping for, but still good enough to come into second place.
Yeah,
I think I'm sorry, Rory, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Thanks. I think the really interesting thing about the supers is how close the spread is. Like the difference between first and fourth is like 1.2 good lift points. Yep. So although like I'm looking at these totals and the individual totals are like largely not blowing me away, it was a good competition, right? Like these people were neck and neck through the whole competition, like coming down to final deadlifts. Most of them made their final deadlift. Like I think, and so like in some ways, this was actually the most exciting session for that reason. And so I think that is like very, very cool from here.
Yeah, I was just going to add. I was going to add the exact same point. So yeah, I mean, not much to add on that. It's just, yeah, it's pretty clustered, and that was a good deadlift battle coming in, down to the last deadlift there with, and it was nice to see Timur kind of back on form in terms of making more lifts. He only totaled 960 at Worlds. Now he was almost 3.2 kilos lighter. So I mean, if he does go to 120, Ryan, it's presumably going to be this long, slow burn, right? Because he's got another 10 kilos of body weight. He does have, perhaps some significant fat that he could continue to lose off of that physique. But it was just nice to see him total about what we thought. We were kind of saying, hey, is he looming around 1,000 kilos? Well, yeah, he's kind of sort of there, right? And so he only missed the one squat. And yeah, to Rory's point, that just came down to an exciting deadlift battle. Etienne not able to hit that 397.5. Obviously, had he done that, then we're talking about a different super heavyweight world games champion.
Yeah. Gentlemen, so the overall, I'm not sure if we already gave him this, but Jurns Kingamu, first place, 120.89 good lift points. Anatoly Novopetsmani from Ukraine, 119.4. And Gustav Hedlund, of course, from Sweden, 116.57. Anything else we should add for the men's division? And my dear friend,
I don't think so. The only thing I would say in general is just I'm really hopeful. I had a good conversation just briefly with the new IPF president. He came back into the warm-up room in between sessions there. I had what I would consider a productive and fruitful and friendly conversation with him. I had spoken to him in Germany, and I told him how impressed I was with everything, and I was just very hopeful that we will be invited back to 2029. And I think, based upon everything that we saw and the Olympic feel of this meet, presumably you're not going to see as many dropouts if it returns in 2020 time. Because I think people were experiencing some big time FOMO and some big time regret not coming to this championships. So
only time will tell. My God, 2029 feels so flipping long.
Yeah. And it
Even
is.
think about it.
4 years is a long time. And so
Dude, everything changes in 4 years.
Yeah, everything
Only
changes
everything.
in 4 years. Right. But I just hope we get invited back. So
Well, I guess the next time we do one of these, we'll all be 4 years older. Let's all refer back to this episode, huh? In 2029, well, this will be fun. This will be fun. Fellas, much appreciated. It was relatively quick that we threw this together and Hall hopped on this. On my end, life has been absolutely crazy. So I appreciate in doing these during the week. It's not always easy with the multiple time zones. Not a single one of us are on the same time zone. Rory's on the other side of the freaking world. But we make it happen. And I appreciate each and every time, fellas. 100%. I really do. I hope I see both of you soon. And we'll talk in the DMs. And everybody listening, as per usual, please do subscribe, give us high ratings. And until next time, 6-pack Lapadat, 6 up, and we are out.